Module 1.7. Line up the interview plan. So now that you're ready, you have your team vision, your why, your personal values, the roles you're looking for, comes the moment where you have to line up your interview plan. Why is it useful? So the interview plan is really the plan that you will share with all the interviewees for yourself to put structure in how you will approach the whole hiring process for a specific role or candidate. What is important in this interview plan is that you have the context of what is the role, for example, you're hiring for. What is the position? What is the level of experience required? So all the job description, the mission card, everything is set, and you know for which role specifically it is. It is the briefing as well for other interviewers in the process. Then define in this interview plan who will interview the candidate, who should be involved in this process, at which step and why. And then think about the different steps and the order of them. What do you start with? With a phone screen? Do you start with a team interview? Where do you put a technical test? When do you have a cross interview, etc. And in this plan, be very specific for each step of the hiring process. What are the pass and fail criteria? So then it's very clear and it's not subjective, but based on really some facts of how you evaluate the candidate at each step and with who. So let me share here an example of how it can look like. And very important point is this interview plan is a work in progress and you iterate it all the time. As you work with the hiring process, you test it on candidates and you see what works, what doesn't, and you change it for the next hiring process. So here is an example of an interview plan, and here you see the number of steps, for example, that are required. So that's what I laid out for a role, and it helps me organize as well how long, when, who, how the steps should go, and who should be part of it, and what is it for this step. And here you can see on the different step, the phone screen is really the first screening where it's more on a HR team, talent acquisition team, to see if a person is looking for exactly this role. Do we match on the salary expectations? Are we clear here about the roles? All the perks of the job. So it's more really at this point exploratory. Then comes a very important interview, is a hiring manager interview. So in this case, it has been me, to really meet directly the candidates, and so they get to know me, I get to know them, and are we looking here for the same thing? Then there's a step of technical test, and then after the test is done and if it's passed, there's a follow-up interview that usually is with team members or somebody more technical who can assess as well the test. And then at last, culture fit, that is done by people that are out of a team to be partial and objective about if a person fits the culture, is aligned with the values, in this case of the company. And final interview with a C-level person, which is part of a process. You don't have to have that if you don't think it's necessary, but in our context, it is a very important step as well, and a good chance for the candidate to talk to the C-level. And at last, reference check. And here is an example about, for example, the team interview step. What are we looking here in this particular step? What are we looking into this interview? And after this interview, how do we evaluate? What are the positive indicators that we see in the interview, and what are the negative ones? And based on that, was it a good interview or not? So this can give you an example of how to make it very methodical and concrete in an interview plan. So not only for you, but all the participants of this hiring process can follow the instruction, the briefing, and you have a very solid hiring process that is consistent and structured.